Hi guys, welcome back to What Fuels a Dancer. My name is Leah and I am a professional ballet dancer and a certified nutrition health coach. We've been talking about some unique challenges that faces injured dancers both physically and mentally. And so today I'm really excited to bring a conversation about mindset for dancers during an injury. Kirsten Kemp will be joining me on this conversation today, and she is a mindset coach for dancers. And she also runs the Twin Talks Ballet YouTube and Instagram. I'm so excited for this conversation today. Kirsten is not only so sweet and genuine, but she's so passionate about helping dancers with their mindset and confidence surrounding dance. I will link all of her information down below, so be sure to check her out. And with all that being said, here's our conversation. All right, guys, so welcome back to What Fuels a Dancer. I am joined today by the lovely Kirsten Kemp. She is a mindset coach for dancers, and we are just going to be chatting about mindset for dancers during an injury. So welcome, Kirsten, to What Fuels a Dancer. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to this position that you found yourself in, and yeah, go for it.
Well, there's definitely a much longer version to this story, as anyone could say, because life isn't just easily summed up in a couple minutes. But essentially the turning point for me from the point where I was dancing in a professional company to deciding, I would say at this point I'm going to talk about, it wasn't like I went from dancing professionally to deciding I'm going to be a mindset coach for dancers and I'm going to start this business and help dancers across the world. Not at all. In fact, I hope this brings comfort to dancers that, my journey, like anybody's journey, is a series of difficult decisions or last minute decisions and just taking one little baby step at a time. But of course, looking back, I can see how there were seeds planted in my mind that ended up, leading and sprouting and growing. I love a good metaphor into what I'm doing now. And really one of the first big pivotal points for me was when I was dancing professionally. I was extremely passionate and in love with ballet and enjoying life in a company so much. It's something I, of course, worked for most of my life to be able to do. And only one season in, I got a really tough knee injury, which of course you can empathize with.
Yes.
It was so physically, emotionally, and mentally draining on me. It was such a strain, yet because of my passion for ballet, I was so willing and ready to fight through that for a year, which I did. But at the point where I was very optimistic, I pushed through the end of my first season with a torn tendon, and I was in so much denial, you know what, I had pushed through injuries so many times before, it's going to be fine. Basically, I was referencing back to my youth when, not that I wasn't young, but when you're 14 and you dislocate your patella and then you're back 2 days later and then that's what I did. And I think I kept recycling that story in my mind, no big deal. I could just bounce back. It's fine. I was I think what I thought at the time is that I was very positive about it, but I was really just in denial big time. And I pushed myself way past the point of a simple fix.
Yeah.
So I essentially gave up my health and my longevity to push through one season. Because of course, when you're in a professional company or even a student, we can, as dancers, get into this very fatalistic black and white way of thinking where it's if I don't do this rehearsal, if I sit out of this rehearsal, they're going to hate me and then I'm never going to get casted again. And then it's all over. And we think so short term and in such inflammatory ways that it can inspire people like me to do things like dance on a torn tendon that was, half torn, and I convinced myself it was fine. So anyway, I tried to get a simple fix through some PRP injections. I ended up going to a doctor who didn't know what he was doing. It went pretty badly. Whereas I'd gotten that treatment many times before, it worked well. This time it didn't. And I tried to start the season 2 weeks in. I couldn't do it. I was trying to do swan lake, pretending I could straighten my knee with a leg warmer on. That was funny. I feel like I was just the world's biggest like con artist at the time. I was like, literally, how did they see that I'm like not fine? This is hilarious. But long story short, I ended up getting surgery. And at the point where I was, facing a lot of despair that my plans just didn't work out, my optimism wasn't enough. I was sitting in the studio watching rehearsals because for me personally, I knew that it was healthy for me to be there and to be with my community of people I really loved. And I knew that it would also be a good thing for me personally, not for everybody, to work through that discomfort and gain acceptance of watching my peers and even appreciating my peers dancing while I wasn't. And what I saw and experienced during that time of sitting out, looking at people, my peers whom I loved and admired, doing these amazing movements, I was genuinely able to see my experience as a dancer from an entirely different perspective, just a few feet away. But it's like I had new eyes to appreciate what was happening and to also get like some frustration that led to the business I have today. Because what I saw is I had this switch in my mind, almost out of desperation, to seek purpose in this injury and to find like some meaning, some way to kind of lean into the challenge and ask the question of how can this injury be stretching me and making me better, or more like rich in my character, even if I'm not more rich in my strength right now. Because of all that pain, I kind of felt like I had no other choice but to just like hold on to that. And what I was noticing is I would have given anything to be able to straighten my leg at that point, anything. And I was watching my peers that I probably used to look at with a critical eye, like, they could have been more turned out or something. I was looking at them and seeing them do like a grand jeté, and I literally thought it was the most incredible thing. It like gives me chills just how incredible I was able to, or how much I was able to appreciate that. And I remember this one moment where one of my peers was doing a grand allegro across the floor, and I thought she just looked amazing. I was so inspired by what she was doing. She was so confident and so strong and so artistic. And the second she did her last like soda shaw and then she just stumbled off, she instantly sunk in her shoulders and said, "Well, that sucked." And I was like, in that moment, I think my whole world changed. I saw myself in her. I saw how many times I had done that. I saw all the rest of my peers doing that at one point or another. And I thought, how ridiculous is it that we can't even see ourselves? We can't even appreciate what we're doing. And one day she might be sitting here like me, or my career might be over. Hers might be over in a moment for another reason. And we're going to look back one day from my vantage point and say, why didn't I enjoy what I was doing? What a waste. And so what I also noticed in my recovery is that my mental state and my emotional state directly had an impact on how much stress I was somaticizing in my body, how stiff my leg felt, how fast or slow my recovery was. Even expectations I had for myself would cause me to push myself too far and then take 5 steps backwards in my recovery. So I noticed that almost every aspect of the injury was mental. So once I got back in the studio and I was able to dance, because of this awareness I had of the power of my mindset, I started to encourage other dancers too, just like, hey, I noticed you're saying really derogatory things about yourself. So I would start to like challenge them or encourage them. People started to come to me when I was injured. I was like, I'm supposed to be the one who's all like womp womp upset here. But I ended up finding so much purpose in like just sharing what I was learning about the power of mindset, not only to be able to recover and to have authentic confidence, but also to have joy in your dancing and to genuinely be able to do it well. Because a lot of dancers are like, oh, great, it would be nice to feel good, but what's that worth if I'm not performing well? My thought is, how are you going to perform well if you're constantly so in your head doubting every little step you make, thinking it's trash? How does that improve your performance, you know? So that was a moment, I think I said that was going to be the short version. It sounded like the long version, but that was a really pivotal moment for me where I recognized that I had a passion for supporting dancers in their mental health, in shifting their mindset to help them like really make the most of this dream that they claim to be living.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that was really like the point that switched my mind to think like, if I were to help dancers in another way, what would that be? And I got the chance to test that out when eventually the knee injury just caused me to make that tough decision to stop dancing professionally and to start doing it just for myself. The amazing thing is that after I left that stress and that pressure, my recovery skyrocketed. Like literally, I went within 1 month, struggling to do even getting through bar and then tendus and adagio in the center to doing grand allegro, feeling great. So anyway, that's just like a bit of my story. And there were a lot of points in between, like deciding I want to help dancers and all that, building this business. But that was really like a pivotal moment in my story.
I'm so grateful that you shared all of that. One, because I know a lot of dancers can relate, especially to kind of the path that your mind can go down when you're injured. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I've realized this in my own life. I've already gone through 2 surgeries, multiple knee dislocations, other injuries that have set me out for a while. And this is the first injury that I've had where I feel very positive about it and very positive about my recovery. And I've noticed how much stronger I've gotten already when my goal isn't set on, I need to be able to do Grand Allegro by this date, or I need to get a contract by this date, because really I've just taken this time to really focus on myself and healing my body and making sure that it feels its best. And as like a little practice, hopefully my physical therapist isn't watching, but I stood in first position the other night and I was like, there's no pain in my knee. Normally coming back from an injury, like I wasn't pushing my turnout, obviously, but like normally it was like, I can't straighten my knee. You know, I am having all this pain, but it's just not there. And I was like,
man, congrats. That's a huge step.
Thanks. But let's talk a little bit about what other dancers can do and experience when they're going through an injury. So why is it important to focus on your mindset during an injury as well as your physical health during recovery?
Well, it's no mystery that the mind and the body are intrinsically connected. I think it's very easy to get so cerebral as a dancer and to think that your mind is the captain of your body, or almost like the drill sergeant that needs to just beat your body into submission. Your mind tells your body, this is what we're going to do. There's that. No talking back now. You know, I'm going to get back and I'm going to do Swan Lake. Dang it. You know, by a certain date. But almost implicit in that sort of mentality is this belief that you cannot let go. You cannot trust your body. You cannot allow the healing to take its own course without there being some sense of laziness or failure, a loss of control. But my philosophy that I kind of feel as if I had to learn through an injury is, well, I didn't have to learn it, but when I was forced to let go of my plans because I literally couldn't do it anymore, I'm not going to pretend I was like all perfect and I just had this like foresight of like where I should be mentally. No, I pushed my body to the absolute limit and then past that. And then I still wasn't willing to let go of my plans. Like, I'm going to be a dancer. I'm going to get back for company auditions. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to keep it going. I was forced to let that go because I was too stubborn until I got to that point of desperation. But then after that point, I saw that when I released attachment and like this desperation to just tell my body what to do all the time, coming from this place of a lack of trust that the body is able to heal itself with some medical intervention. Of course, we do love some modern technology that is very helpful. But at least what I saw is my previous mentality of looking for quick fixes, denying myself, denying my body's pain cues and things like that, because I actually associated success with that. And that came from some of my training, praising extreme self-denial, praising, reframing things that should not be reframed. Like, oh, you're hungry, suck it up. You're hurting, you're not injured, you're just not tough enough. Things like that.
Yeah.
I had internalized so many of those messages that I actually got a sense of pride from how much I was disregarding my body and treating it like garbage. And I didn't trust that if I were to let go of that drill sergeant mentality and let my body tell me what the healing schedule was, or to tell me what my training regimen should be for that day. Until I let go, I didn't see results. And that actually allowed me to realize, like, wow, that my body really does know what it's doing. And in fact, it was an incredible learning opportunity for me to release attachment from not only the healing process, but what I felt my career had to be, who I felt I had to be successful or to feel like a decent person. What I feared the most was having to let go of my dreams. But what I gained through that, and what I think all dancers can gain through, just releasing attachment to their timeline, their process, even their old sense of identity, all these things, how they think their body should look, all that stuff. It seems like the most terrifying thing in the world to let that go.
Yes.
But what you gain is freedom from having to be any of those things to be living a good life. And then you'd be surprised. You can actually heal from that openness of mind and then come back to dance. Dance will still be there. Yeah. And you can choose to do it again rather than almost being a slave to it. I have to do it, and I have to do it this way, and I have to look this way. When you let go of the have to mentality, I think that's when real healing physically and mentally can start. So I hope that didn't really get off track, but that's kind of like my TED talk about injuries.
Exactly. And I feel like, I know for dancers who are probably on the edge of finishing up with dance, whether it be due to an injury or other things that are happening in their life, they have to grapple with, who am I outside of dance?
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me when I didn't know if I was going to be able to recover, and watching all of my other friends succeed, which we'll talk a little bit about later of how we can handle that.
Yes.
But once I changed my identity from I'm only a dancer to dance is a part of my identity, but there's so many other things about me that are valuable, that are unique, that are amazing, then I feel like I had a different relationship with dance, and a more positive one, because it wasn't, as you said, this desperation, I have to do this, and so I definitely relate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as so many dancers learn to, we learn this mentality of almost we forget that we choose to be in the ballet world.
Yeah.
We kind of lose that power of choice in our minds. It's still there. Even the idea that you don't have to go back to dance. And that doesn't mean you won't choose to, but remember that if you do, you choose to. You can choose to make any sort of decision for your well-being. And even if every single part of your life stays the same, you don't choose to leave dance, just remembering, I'm choosing to be here because I love it. Or I'm choosing to use this injury as an opportunity to learn, rather than, oh my gosh, why did this happen to me? What a travesty. and I want to just kind of go back to the mindset side of things, because of your first question, like, how is mindset important? Your mental frame dictates how you're interpreting what your circumstances are. How you choose to interpret your circumstances determines how you feel about it. How you feel about it and how you think about it determines your actions. Your actions determine your results. So it's kind of simple when you think about it. And so like, I think one of the things we're going to talk about is like, how do you create a mental shift? First, it's like awareness, recognizing what is it that you're feeling? What are you thinking right now?
Yeah.
What belief is lying underneath those thoughts or feelings?
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? Why is it that, or where did you get that definition of good? Like deciding this is a good time frame to recover, this is a bad one, this is success, this is failure. All these labels are completely subjective, but these mental frames and these labels determine our interpretation, which can have a tremendously positive or negative emotional consequence. And emotions are stored in our bodies.
Yeah.
If you're holding in emotions and stress, you and I both know, like, stress really throws a wrench in the socket with your recovery, because it's not just mental stress, it's like you have it in your body. So I hope I didn't like get off there, but
no, I think this is I think this is a perfect segue into talking about how we can start recognizing when we have a negative mindset, because so many dancers deal with disappointment, anger, frustration, feeling like you're missing out watching all of your peers. Like I remember for me, when I was going through my hip surgery, I was supposed to be finding a job that year. And I was watching all my friends perform, like Swan Lake, and I forgot what else they were performing that year. And they were getting jobs. And I was like, well, if I can dance again, I'm going back to another year of training. And there was so much disappointment and frustration at myself too. So how can we turn that and shift our mindset during an injury? And like, what are some tools that we can use to improve our mindset?
Yeah, very important question. And the first thing I want to say is that the solution isn't positive thinking. It's not trying to convince yourself that everything is fine. And also, strength is not suppressing your emotions. We're each human beings that are designed in this beautiful way to have like this deep feeling that helps, which are emotions, which help us to interpret or just make sense of what's happening in our world. Thoughts don't always cut it. We can't always like think our way into understanding, but oftentimes our bodies know, you know, and so the first step is absolutely accepting that emotions are valid and to let them surface and to allow yourself to feel them is extremely healing, because emotions really, like in the way that I definitely used to deal with emotions, I still catch myself doing this sometimes. And a lot of the dancers I work with, they have struggled with this too, which is we associate strength, like personal strength or goodness in our character, almost personal success, with how well we can suppress our emotions, how quickly we can stop feeling something bad because negative emotions are bad. That's why I wish there were a different label for negative emotions. Positive and negative, that doesn't equal good and bad. Both serve a purpose. Again, there are a myriad of different experiences we're going to have in life. And these negative emotions help us to really register what's happened, reckon with that. And it gives us the physical cue. Once we have processed that emotion, it gives us this sense that we have been resolved. And that is really important. But if you cut off the emotions too soon and say, I shouldn't feel that way, or if you have a peer come up, which I think we all do when we get injured, don't cry, it's going to be okay, stay positive. Leah, how many people I've wanted to slap.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been one of those people too, because I used to be a big time emotional suppressor. And so I have no doubt I told people that. And they should have slapped me, honestly. But the thing is, like, we hear these things and we think, okay, it's good if we just stop the emotions right there, turn it around as quickly as possible, and either don't feel, so we go numb, or we try to convince ourselves that we're doing just fine, it's all good, recovery is going really great, and we feel pressure to give like positive reports all the time. But it is so strong to remove, like strong of any of us, to remove the kind of cultural expectations of how we're supposed to process this, and just honor the emotions that do come up. It's like getting a bag of groceries and putting it in your kitchen and noticing that it's there, but then being like, I don't want to unpack it. I'm just going to leave it there. You don't even know if you got some bananas, in that bag, and they might be rotting and stinking, but it's there and I don't want it. And your emotions are going to keep coming up. They're going to, come up in different ways. So if you if you fear the feeling, or you try to suppress it too soon without reckoning with that disappointment, it's going to keep coming up for resolution in different ways. So the first thing I say is, you don't have to switch your mindset at the beginning. How you're feeling is how you're feeling. And it is so important to grieve the loss of an expectation that was really important to you.
Yes.
So grieve that. And then once you feel complete in grieving that, and everyone's timeline is different, so take your time. You can be private about that. You can include a few other people in that. But even if you're worried about being judged, know from over here in the internet, I'm really proud of you. I'm here with you in this. Like, that's so strong. And then after that, once you feel, you're going to know kind of like when you're done. You're going to notice like, okay, I think I'm just feeling this way because I want to pout. I'm not actually feeling it. You're going to know.
Yeah.
You feel that. Then you can start to ask yourself questions about, how am I going to approach this injury? What is my intention with this? And notice if it is to get back as fast as possible. And I would really encourage anybody to have a partner in this recovery who can listen to you and be there to challenge your expectations, because it's going to be very tempting to kind of go back to your old expectations for yourself. Like, well, the goal is just to get back to dancing as soon as possible because that's what I want to do. That's who I am. And I think we all need someone who's there to help us through the process of adapting mentally to a new sense of identity, a new source of confidence that doesn't have to do with how much you can do or produce, but how well you can, like, I guess, like, hold this experience and just be patient in it. I think a great way to divert where you get your success from, or sense of success from, or accomplishment, because that's important to a lot of dancers. That's okay. But it's important to be adaptable where you get that sense from. And it could be, I feel so accomplished for how I've chosen to grow in my character, instead of just choosing to still define success as how well I dance. Because as long as you define it that way, you're going to be miserable through your whole recovery. And that misery might cause you to do things that are very disruptive to the healing process. So in short, make space for the emotions, feel them until you're complete. Work with a counselor. I've worked with dancers through this process as a mindset coach. And then you'll know when the emotions have cleared. They'll come up every now and then. I'm not saying like you won't feel anything anymore. For sure. There will be a lot of pouty days. But then you can start to kind of redefine success, redefine who you are, redefine kind of the 2.0 version of you that you want to get to or become in the studio, instead of, and here's a really important thing, don't try to become or go back to how you were or gain something you've lost, because you're stepping forward. As long as you're defining like your outcome, like this is what I want in terms of like how you looked before, you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel less than. You're going to wonder, that was in the past and I was looking better and dancing better and feeling better back then. I guess I'm worth nothing now. I'm failing. No. You're building, deconstructing to build something new.
Yes.
I
love that. Yeah. No, I absolutely love that analogy. And it also just reminds me of, we talk about different things in the health of a dancer, but I feel like we both talk about the intuitiveness and the individuality in it, that each dancer's recovery is going to be different. It's going to look different. You might feel different emotions, and that is okay. And I feel like I'm always saying it all the time, like, it's okay. It's okay to like feel those negative emotions and to sit with them and process them. It doesn't mean that you are a bad person or like a bad dancer for, seeing disappointment and naming it. And again, recognizing that growth isn't going to like start over here and then just go straight up. Like, it's like, woo,
it's going to feel like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the importance of having someone with you to help you walk through that process is so incredibly helpful. And as much as I can, I encourage dancers to go seek out the help and support that they need, because it really is so helpful to have someone, exactly, same, someone from the outside who can get outside of our brains, first of all, and then see our situation and help us to reframe what we're experiencing. And again, as you said, we aren't trying to get back to where we were, a year ago or 6 months ago. We're creating a new version of ourselves. And I think sometimes, or really never, it's talked about like the good things that can come out of injuries for our dancing. Like for me, I personally have experienced time off where I've gotten to spend time with family and friends that I normally wouldn't have been able to spend. I've been able to strengthen my body, heal relationship with food, and like create a different body image. And I've seen that then reflect in my dancing. And so I think it is important to highlight that injuries, while they can be devastating and frustrating, they aren't going to always produce just negative outcome. There are positives and negatives. It's not just black or white. So I love that you kind of talked about that as well. So what are some changes, because I know that you have worked with dancers who have gone through injuries. What are some changes that you have noticed when they focus their mind through an injury in a different way, and how that translates from an injury into going back into the studio and starting to dance again?
Yeah. So first, one of the biggest benefits I've personally noticed in myself and with clients I've had is this certain level of invincibility. Like when you, and it's not necessarily a feeling that comes after you're all healed 100%. It can come in the middle of your darkest hour, when you recognize that you're literally facing one of your greatest fears as a dancer and you're still here and you can still find purpose in that. That is so strengthening for your character and for your mind. And what that directly translates to is a release of this, what I call the have to mentality, which is a term of obligation. You hear dancers all the time, and this is also going back to the other question, a way that you can personally identify if you're starting to get into a negative mindset, or at least I would say, instead of negative, unresourceful. That's a way that I like to put it. It's just not the most beneficial for your personal objectives as a dancer. So, because usually when I say negative, then dancers are like, I know I'm so negative. I'm like, it's not a shameful thing. Let's just call it unresourceful. Like, it's not the most helpful way for you. So let's just switch that. And when I notice a dancer is constantly saying, I have to do this, I have to look this way, I have to please this person, I have to get into this company, I have to keep working harder and harder and harder. All these things. Have to is one of the favorite phrases of most dancers, yet one of the most destructive. And again, that goes back to, and like, what is hiding underneath those constant have tos is this feeling of like losing your freedom to choose. Like, maybe, you can have a personality as a dancer and a voice as a dancer. You can walk up to the company manager and be like, hey, I saw this and it wasn't right. Help.
Yeah.
You can sit out one day of class and rehearsal, or even for a week, for the sake of preventing a serious injury. And you would be shocked if you know how to handle that conversation. You can actually gain respect from the staff instead of losing it and losing everything you've worked for. You realize when you let go of the have to mentality, that so many of the stories of, oh my gosh, if I do this or if I don't do this, everything is over, it's all bad. You realize a lot of that is just a story.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most powerful switches that can allow a dancer to feel this new freedom, a new level of autonomy, which I think we're all craving as dancers. We crave to know that we can choose, who we are, what we dance like, what we do. We can choose whether or not we accept our own dancing and appreciate it. We don't have to wait for someone else to like it for us to be allowed to like it. We hold the keys to that. But yet we oftentimes just like toss it to somebody else. And I think the beautiful thing about an injury is that if you lean into the opportunity of it, which I think one of the biggest opportunities is to kind of go through a very uncomfortable growth process that you would not go through on your own. Like, no one can choose that. In a lot of ways, it sucks. But if we label the whole experience as a terrible, like, travesty, then you're probably going to miss out on the beautiful growth opportunity to, like I said, just gain freedom from recognizing you don't have to be any of those things or do any of those things to be a lovable human being. So yeah, just that invincibility, I think, is one of the most beautiful things.
Yeah. And I think also that can bring a sense of, I can define myself as a dancer, whether or not I'm dancing professionally or not. And I think that has been super freeing for me and for so many people, is knowing that you like achieving the level or the attribute of a dancer isn't, you have to meet these certain qualifications. Like, we are dancers. We're always going to be dancers, no matter if we're injured, no matter if we are dancing professionally or we're just dancing for the pure enjoyment of it. And I think we can then get back to why we started dancing in the first place.
Yes. Letting go of the labels. That's another thing. Like, letting go of good and bad, because they're so arbitrary, Leah. Like, that's one of the main things that I gained through my injury process, is realizing, and it took a long time, it felt like, to just get enough distance from that experience to reckon with, like, the questions of, I don't like to ask myself why it happened. I rarely spend time on that question, because I fully accept that I'm not God and I don't know everything, and I won't. And that's fine. But I trust that there's a purpose. And so just in trusting that there was a purpose, I was able to kind of have some patience. And then it was surprising, like within a couple months, I could start to see, like, wow, I'm free from so many of those old labels I had of, like, this is a good way to be or to live, a good thing to do or a bad thing to do. And I realized I was just caught in this black and white way of thinking that left me kind of oppressed when I was physically healthy. And now I was free, though I was physically unhealthy in a way. But the beautiful thing is, once I've gotten healthy, I've kept that freedom of mind to recognize and to challenge. Like, when I say I should be doing this, I have to be doing that, I'm like, should I?
Yeah.
Says who? Says who? Who says you have to come back by a certain time? Who says your process needs to look just like another dancer? You have your own body. You have your own history with that body. You have your own doctors. You have your own experience. You have your own timeline. You also have your own purpose for like how you can learn and grow through this process, and like what will be the regrowth after this deconstruction. I think that's also unique for all of us. So my story of, wow, I gained freedom from these labels and a certain feeling of autonomy and almost invincibility. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, because I'm a soft human being as well. Like I'm liable to experience failure and pain and all these things. But that's what I gained, and I've seen other dancers gain. But maybe for you or other dancers watching, something entirely different that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah. I love this conversation. I feel like this is so important to not only bring up now as dancers might be starting to transition back into the studio and might be more susceptible to getting injured, because now that like little square of Marley has become a whole room, which is very exciting, but sometimes we can get a little bit too ahead of ourselves. And also just transitioning into rehearsing and being on point, you know, for longer periods of time. I think this is going to be a conversation that will be important for so many dancers, whether right now or in the future. So I am so grateful that you were able to come on here and you were able to talk about this.
Thank you.
Of course. Tell everyone where they can find you if they want to reach out, follow you, ask you questions.
Or work with me. I definitely, as a mindset coach, my actual work is to support dancers one-on-one, sometimes through group seminars and things like that, which have been happening on Zoom. But most of my work, it happens individually over Zoom with dancers all over the world. As a mindset coach, certified in neuro-linguistic programming, I really help dancers to overcome self-doubt, deep insecurities, basically mental blocks or perspectives that are really keeping them insecure, really just unsatisfied with themselves, with their dancing, kind of having that feeling like, I know I could dance better, or I know I could be happier, but I'm not. Like, what's happening? So I've supported dancers through injury recovery, you know, in the mental side of things. I've supported dancers through preparing for audition season, like learning, helping them to like establish this very authentic confidence that they can then use to like really put themselves out there and shine, knowing what they have to offer and like really believing in it. That's a big thing. If you can't tell, I'm like not a positive thinking girl. I'm not like, just think this thing that you probably don't believe and it's all going to be fine. Like you have to believe what you're saying about yourself or about your future. But yeah, I've supported dancers through lots of things like that. And I'd be happy to help any dancers who might be injured and struggling mentally, wanting a partner. I'm definitely here for that. And so anyone can find me at my website, kirstenkemp.com, or my YouTube channel. I have tons of videos on there about injuries, technique tips, audition tips, all like anything and everything. Mindset stuff, a ton of mindset stuff. So you can look for Twin Talks Ballet on YouTube and Instagram.
Awesome.
I'm also on Facebook, but it's more like I share my Instagram post to Facebook.
I feel you.
Who uses Facebook?
I feel you there. Awesome. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much for being on What Fuels a Dancer and having this conversation. And guys, go check her out. She is an amazing resource and friend. And I will see you guys all very soon. Bye, guys.
Internet hugs.
Internet hugs. Yeah, that would be really sad if it was not recorded.
Oh, I got
because that would be something I would do. That would be something I would do. Anyway, okay.
My plant wall.
Love that.
Just feel them like sending good oxygen your way. It was great because like earlier this summer we could track the growth. It started up here.
True. Honestly, that has been the highlight of my life, is watching my plants grow. It's made me so happy.
I'm so proud of them.